Franke is now here. Mr. Winward, we are scheduled for a waiver hearing. Is there going to be a waiver today?
I think her family members are actually back there. I saw her dad, her mom, and her sister come in. I'm not familiar with her other family members, but I recognize like those three. I think she was smiling over to them.
There will, plus a plea agreement, Your Honor.
All right.
I'll ask the bailiff to hand you what has been executed.
All right. Mr. Winward, you have discussed with Ms. Franke a preliminary hearing, what's involved in a preliminary hearing. She understands she has a right to a preliminary hearing on all of the charges in the case. She understands what the charges are, and she's prepared to waive a preliminary hearing in the case on all charges.
She is, and that is contained in this agreement on page 7 as well.
Very good.
So since there's a plea deal, there's no preliminary hearing. So preliminary hearing is when the state's going to go over all the evidence they have so far against Ruby Franke, against Jodi Hildebrandt, and the court's going to determine whether or not there's probable cause to go to the next step, which would have been trial. And of course, you guys already know with trial, you need to be on a reasonable doubt. So she's waiving her right to do a preliminary hearing, and she's going with a plea deal. And if you guys remember, she was initially charged with 6 counts of aggravated child. And now you're going to see she's only charged with 4 counts, I believe. So that's probably part of the plea deal.
Good. All right. I've been handed a plea agreement, and it appears to be signed by Ms. Franke. Ms. Franke, did you sign this agreement?
Yes,
And you did that today? When did you sign it?
on the 18th.
Okay.
Not today.
You've read it carefully?
Every word.
Your signature represents to the court that you've read it carefully, that you understand what you've read, and that you agree to all of the terms. Is that all accurate?
Yes,
You've had sufficient time to ask questions of your counsel, to go over any questions you have. You're ready to go forward.
yes,
You don't need any more time.
I'm ready.
Ms. Franke, is anyone pressuring you to enter into this agreement?
No,
Anyone promising you anything I haven't been told about?
no,
Anything that's not in the written plea agreement?
no,
Are you under the influence of alcohol or drugs today?
no,
Is there anything today that could in any way interfere with your ability to understand the agreement, its consequences, anything?
no,
No physical condition, no medication, nothing?
no.
Yeah, the judge just wants to make sure she's not going to backtrack on this. She wants to make sure, or the judge wants to make sure that, okay, like you're doing this plea deal thing. You're 100% sure you're not under influence. And, I'm actually quite surprised. She actually looks pretty, usually people are kind of like in like, I don't know, like in prison for a little bit, and they kind of look all haggardly. She looks pretty healthy looking, decent.
Any further record, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Winward, we ready to proceed?
We are ready to proceed.
All right, then. Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
There is a factual basis set forth in the agreement that is a stipulated factual basis, counsel.
That's correct, Your Honor.
That is correct, Judge Walton.
I'm actually surprised. I mean, I don't know too much about these two women, but for the information that I knew so far, I'm actually pretty surprised. I thought they would fight it teeth and nail, because it seems like, Ruby Franke, she was called in the past for, tactics that people thought were kind of like child abuse, and she was very gung-ho, like saying like, no, this is what I do. This is how I punish my children. You guys are all wrong. And I remember her mentioning that, when people got mad at her about taking one of her kids' bed away for 10 months, she was like, well, we took Chad to, the camp of, was it Anasazi? I forgot what the name was. And what's the first thing they did? They took his bed away. So that's not child abuse. I just felt like everything that they did felt like it was so righteous to them and that they just were not in the wrong. So, maybe she's had some time to really self-reflect and really think about her actions and how it affected her kids, hopefully, right?
The court finds that the factual basis is sufficient. All of the terms of the agreement are stipulated, including that the court obtain a pre-sentence investigation report, correct?
Correct.
There won't be any argument about whether prison is the appropriate sentence, and there's an agreement about the 4 counts running consecutive.
That is correct.
All right, the court finds then that Ms. Franke's pleas are made knowingly and voluntarily. The court therefore accepts and enters those pleas. The court orders the preparation of a pre-sentence investigation report to be prepared by AP&P and the Department of Corrections. Counsel, what about sentencing on February 20th? I think, do you and your client agree to waive time, counsel?
We do agree to waive time, Your Honor.
February 20th, I believe, is a Tuesday. Is that right?
That's my second point. See, I want to know what she's going to say in regards to Jodi Hildebrandt and the amount of culpability that she had in all of this, because that's why I kind of want to do this. Cause, I want to do it sequentially initially, because I wanted to read the statement that her lawyer put out. And I mean, we're going to wait and see what else Ruby Franke has to say about Jodi. But the other thing, it could just be that because after this entire thing came out regarding, after the arrest of Ruby and Jodi, well, we had victims of Jodi come out and speak. And because they came out and speak, well, that's when we start hearing more from Kevin Franke and his lawyer. They were like, oh, you know what? I came to a realization that all this was really just Jodi Hildebrandt, actually. And we saw them run with that for, after interview, like a bunch of interviews they did, started to slowly shift the blame on Jodi, because that was a public persona, because we had these victims coming out. We had 2 victims that came out, and people were very they were very empathetic towards these 2 victims. And so I think Kevin Franke kind of jumped on that bandwagon. And then maybe at some point, Ruby Franke and her lawyer, maybe Ruby was initially resistant, but her lawyer was like saying, hey, this is the opportunity for you to jump on this bandwagon too, because I'm not blaming the victims or anything for coming out, but I'm just saying that it's possible that, Ruby Franke saw it as an opportunity, let's just go with the, the public perception of just blaming Jodi Hildebrandt. So that could be a thing, but it could also just be a thing where maybe it really was all Jodi and maybe she was really manipulated by it, even though she's a grown-ass adult. But there's a lot of information that we don't know yet, but I'm just all these things are still in my mind. I completely haven't forgotten about it. Yes, I'm glad that she's, taking, she's accepting responsibility by doing this, pleading guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child, but we'll see, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
10 a.m.?
That works for us, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else for today?
I mean, and it could also be that maybe she thinks this will be easier for her children, because imagine if she was fighting against these charges, the children are going to have to come up and testify and stuff like that. So, maybe she's also hoping that Jodi's going to be offered a plea deal as well. I don't know. Maybe she's also doing it just to save her children, the trauma of having them to go up there and testify against their own mom. There's just a lot of factors out there. Yeah, the niece, Jessie Hildebrandt is Jodi Hildebrandt's niece. And there was another one as well. What was his name again? Was it Kevin? I gotta look up his name. We listened to it on the, I listened to it on the Mormon Stories podcast. They took that episode down, by the way, because they were having some issues. Were they able to ever get it back up? Does anyone know?
Or maybe, I've heard the court say this several times in a different fashion. We are not binding the court to any specific sentence, and the court retains its right to sentence as it sees fit. I just mentioned that this is not a Rule 11 plea, but although it's a stipulated statement of defendant.
Counsel approach, please.
Do we know the details of the plea deal? Yeah, I'll go over that a little bit after this. Yeah, so I think I see her father, maybe her mom, sister. Not quite too sure who these two are. I'm not really too familiar with the Franke family. I've only seen her two sisters, and I'm just assuming, maybe, I don't know. Looks like a very young mom and dad, though. I was looking at this video right here when they were entering in, and I just made the assumption that, so maybe like some family members. I mean, that right there kind of looks like Ruby Franke. Maybe it's because like the same hairstyle, but I think that's like her sister, maybe mom. She looks really young, and possibly dad as well. He also looks really young. That's the Franke family. All right, let's go back to this. All right, they're just having a little side discussion right now. But yeah, I'm surprised. Ruby Franke's got some color in them cheeks. I feel like usually when they come out, they look all kind of like disheveled, baggy-eyed. Skin looks really unhealthy. You don't think so? Jodi won't take it. I can't imagine they'll offer. I mean, so Jodi Hildebrandt also has a waiver hearing as well.
All right, anything else for today?
No, Judge.
Nothing from the state.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. We are in recess.
Thanks, Your Honor.
So how this initial rumor of the plea deal started was the Washington State Attorney's Office requested a waiver hearing for both Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt. Ruby Franke's happening now on the 18th of December, and Jodi Hildebrandt's is supposed to happen, I think, like a little bit after Christmas time, like maybe the 27th. And so people are like, oh, why is there a waiver hearing? You mean they don't want to do a preliminary hearing? I wonder why. Is it because they're going to take a plea deal? So if you do a plea deal, there won't be a preliminary hearing, and there won't be a trial. But I don't know. Is it like, maybe is it possible for them to offer both women a plea deal and see what happens? So just a little bit of the details in regards to the plea deal. So Ruby Franke has agreed to plead guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child. And initially it was 6, but they dropped the 2 of them. And so if you guys remember, each sentence carries about a 1 to 15-year term. So if she's going to plead guilty to 4, she's going to see maybe possibly a max sentencing of 60 years. Of course, I don't know if she's going to get the full 60 years, but we'll see about that. And then also, part of the plea deal as well was that she's going to testify against Jodi Hildebrandt, and she's going to testify truthfully. They emphasize the word truthfully there. And also her sentence will run concurrently, it will run concurrently, not consecutively. So with consecutively, it's like, after one charge is done, you do the next charge and the next charge and next charge. Concurrently is when it's like all like served kind of like at the same time. So those are the details that I've heard so far. And then we'll have her sentencing on February 20th, 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Do you think Ruby will get about like 5 years? Yeah, I don't know. I just honestly, I feel like anything involving child, I don't know. I just feel like the sentences are just light to me. Timothy Fairder, the boy in the box case, like, what did he get again? Like 5 years? Like 5 years? Are you serious? Like, I don't know. I just feel like whenever you hear cases of like where there's child, but the child is not dead, I just feel like, I don't know. It just sentencing is just, to me, it just feels light.